Evolutionary.org Underground Supplements episode 22 is coming your way. Today's going to be a very important episode. Today we're going to talk about how to identify supplement scams versus quality products. So Mobster and I are really going to go over a few things in this one. We're going to talk about what you need to know. We're going to talk about examples of scams. And this is one that Mobster really wants to get into because he's really aggravated by these. We're talking about doing your own research, ingredients to watch out for in spiking in products, good company
Yeah.
products, and why and to be Amazon. But let's start with what you need to know. I'll bring in Mobster on this one right away.
Steve, you and I have been around the game a long time, and I've definitely been around the game a long time. And throughout the whole history, even before my time of lifting weights, which started in 1980, from probably the 60s onwards, products were created for bodybuilders. And prior to that, you've had vitamin products for years, things that were pseudo snake oil, Steve. Snake oil is a good example. Going back way back when there wasn't medication and there weren't enough doctors in the wild west. So you had this whole idea, and it was literally sometimes oil made from snakes. Oil, and I think even the snake oil thing is a kind of joke because what oil would have snakes in? Can you make oil from snakes? So even that was kind of like a tongue-in-cheek reference to the simple fact that probably since man has been able to trade, there have been medications, formulations, products, snake oil, if you like, which promise to be some sort of panacea, some sort of miracle, fixes everything, etc. I mean, Victorian times, Steve, over here in the United Kingdom, and even in America to a lesser degree, you had products that children could get given to them from the local chemist, from the local pharmacist in America, the chemist here in the UK, which had morphine in. And it was like cough linctures. Okay, so the snake oil thing was always something like, oh, I've got this rash, rub this oil on. Oh, I've got this cough, drink the oil. Oh, I've got cancer, take this oil in a drop and put it in your eye and it will cure cancer. And so the scams, the way that people have been promised certain particular things have been around centuries, certainly 100, 150 years. The problem we have in bodybuilding is that the marketers, the sellers of some products, which in and of themselves are okay at best, promise too much. So you will have 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, even 90s bodybuilders, especially the younger guys, buying products convinced it was quote unquote steroid like results. Joe Weider got done. Me and my dad, Steve, had an argument over a product which was vitamins, but used the word anabolic in the title of the product. So my dad had just done a paramedic course where they were allowed, with the permission of a doctor, to give an injection to a patient in the back of the ambulance. I was convinced that because it said anabolic in the title, there was steroids, and it was literally a 45 vitamin. And the FDA actually took him to whatever over it is, and he got fined a great deal of money and had to remove the word anabolic from this vitamin mix because it sounded too steroid-like. We've had pro hormones, which were steroids, and other products which weren't even pro hormones traded as. I mean, you and I both know, for example, Steve, of some companies, big name companies that are still around that actually had pro hormone like products in boxes of their own product that looked like they were medication and were deliberately designed that sounded like they were medication. I'm thinking of Gaspari. So the Weider, Gaspari, the companies here in the UK. I wrote a 4,000 word article for Muscle Talk over some whole protein scam and completely exposed some of the scams in the industry. I wish I still had it so I could read from it while we're doing this show. And talked about the spiking that Steve's on about. People in China got hung by the government because the government wanted Chinese children to drink milk, which really is bad for the digestion because of what we used to do in the West. We give milk to kids in America, and the UK, and Europe, and they spiked the protein product, the milk product they were providing with melamine, literally the stuff that people's formica or your laminate tabletops made from, and they spiked it with this indigestible compound, got caught. The Chinese government went crazy, and these four particular people got hung. So we're talking about government-sponsored stuff where there's been scams, poisons, toxins. But the number one problem is the difference between low quality, overpriced, poorly researched products, products that promise more than they can deliver, versus properly priced, properly dosed products that actually do deliver. Actually, as I've used this phrase before, actually do what they say on the tin. So, an obvious example, and there's loads and loads and loads of this kind of stuff, and I'll bring Steve in for this as well, right? And look, I don't think supplements are any less scammy than, for example, the idea of selling a family car but projecting it in the advert onto a lonely Scottish road or the middle of the Nevada desert, doing what appears to be some immense speed with this single driver, when in reality is a family car. You are selling the idea of something versus the reality. The reality is it's going to be driven around with kids to school, to go to the shops, to go out for dinner, to get the fella, the driver, the mum, the dad, whoever to work. And yet they're selling the idea that it's somehow sexy and sporty and whatever else. And it's not. Yeah, it's not a luxury saloon. It just has one or two things in it which might be luxurious. And this happens with perfume. Perfumes are going to attract women. Cologne's going to attract women. Perfumes are going to attract men, and so on. So you sell the idea of something. The problem is, I think we feel as bodybuilders, as people that train with weights, somehow let down. So we need, and this is the purpose of this show today, and I'll bring Steve in now. We need to know what kind of scams exist so we can look out for them, how to identify good products, and so on. So what do you think about the way that the industry has worked and the difficulty that sometimes our listeners will have between knowing what works and what doesn't work?
Well, the misconception that people think is they go online to buy a supplement or to go to the store to buy a supplement, even legitimate retail stores, like a GNC, for example, or a Vitamin Shop or any of these stores, or a Walmart, any retail store, and you think that you buy a supplement off the shelf, it's necessarily safe, or it's necessarily the ingredients are necessarily what they claim they are, or it's not spiked or any of that stuff, which we're going to get into later with ingredients and spiking. But here's the misconception. The FDA, okay, they are not funded well, okay, in the United States. And they're not funded well in most other countries as well. They're probably obviously funded well in the EU and in Britain,
Mm.
because you guys take health much more seriously. But United States, the FDA continues to have their funding cut and cut and cut because of the propaganda that's out there. Supplement companies do a really good job of putting out propaganda. And look, I've interviewed a lot of these supplement owners. 99% of them hate the FDA. They don't want the FDA. They want to just be able to produce whatever products they want. They want to be able to put whatever they want on the labels. They want to be able to lie. They want to be able to cheat you, whatever, to get away with it because they're businessmen. And that's what businessmen do. They want to make money off of you. Businessmen don't want to put out a good product and make you happy. I actually interviewed one of the founders of N2BM probably about 8 or 10 years ago. And I asked him about this subject, and he said, no, no, I love the FDA. And I said, why? Why do you like the FDA? That's very interesting because every supplement owner hates the FDA. Every supplement owner says the FDA is crooked or whatever. And he says, because that keeps the industry honest. And when the industry stays honest, that's good for me because now I can stay competitive versus the other companies. So if I'm putting out a really good supplement and I'm putting the best ingredients in that supplement, let's say I want to put out a support supplement or a test booster. Let's use a test booster, for example. I want to put out a really good test booster, and I want to put down that I have 1,000 milligrams of Fidosia and 1,000 milligrams of Tribulus in it, and 500 milligrams of fenugreek, and list out the ingredients and list out the dosing, and it's good quality herbals that are
Yeah.
highest quality. And then the guy I'm competing against claims that he's putting the same amount in the products, but he's not. He's lying about what he's putting in the products. He's lying about the dosing. The quality is extremely poor, but he's selling it for half the price I'm selling it for. The consumer is not going to know to come and buy mine. They're gonna see this that his product is the same as me on the label, and it's being pushed by a professional bodybuilder, and it's being pushed by some dude on YouTube who's putting out videos and pushing the product, and that gives me a competitive disadvantage. So I want the FDA to come in. So the FDA has the power to come in and test these supplements, and if it's not what you claim in the supplement, or you're spiking, or you're doing, or you're not, or you're lying about what's in it, or you're lying about dosing, they'll issue a recall, and you'll have to pull the products off the market. But here's the bad news: the FDA is so underwhelmed and so poorly funded, and the funding is going to get worse in America over the next 4 years. It's going to get way worse because of the people running America. And what's going to happen is that only 1 or 2% of all the products that you see on the shelves in supplement stores and all the products you see being sold online are being tested. And so anybody could put anything they want in a product monster and sell it on Amazon, or sell it at Walmart, or sell it at any of these stores, and there's no way to know what you're getting. So you really need to be aware of that, and you need to use your head on this stuff. And
Yes.
if a supplement is claiming something that's too good to be true, then it probably is. And if a
Yeah.
supplement is claiming that it's going to be similar, like you said, this is going to give you steroid-like results, they're
Yes.
lying to you. They're full of shit. And if they're saying that it's going to be this supplement is going to be just as good as taking an actual drug from a legitimate doctor, then obviously they're lying. So you got to be
Yeah.
aware of that. If a company is spending all their money, okay, instead of on research and improving the product, if they're spending all their money on paying
Marketing.
off
Yeah.
influencers and paying off
Yes.
bodybuilders
Yes.
to say buy this product, then obviously it's a bad product because
Look,
they
Steve.
shouldn't
The
need
issue
that.
here's the issue, right? And I think sometimes we wish almost in a way, and there have been attempts, although unfortunately it's like the foxes are the ones doing it, not the chickens in the chicken coop. The issue here is thus, right? The FDA is called the Food and Drug Administration for a reason, and supplements is a small part of that. We literally need the FDA to make sure that the eggs that you have are good, that the cereal that you brought in the supermarket is good. So their focus must be what every single person in America eats. It has to be, Steve. Their focus cannot be the supplement industry. That's probably less than 5% of what they do. They literally should focus, as you'd expect them to, on the food that you buy as an average American consumer, not as someone that works out and wants to use supplements every single day. Is your milk good quality? Is the butter you buy, is the beef poisoned? Is the cereal you're going to give to your children good to go? Is the brand of cola that you like not toxic? And that's their job. It has to be. The problem you've got, and the supplement industry is caught on quite quickly in this particular regard. A couple of the really large companies and even some of the smaller mum and pop type stores have joined organizations both in America and the UK that now, like the big industry, like the pharma industry, and I say pharmaceutical industry when I say that, car industry, etc., they literally have people who they pay to go and annoy senators, to go and annoy the right politicians. I've forgotten the name for it, Steve, but essentially, you want your
It's called a lobbyist.
lobbyists, that's the word. They pay people to lobby on their behalf. We want the freedom to make this. We want the freedom to sell this dangerous car. We want the freedom not to have to recall because the brakes failed. All of these things. So the supplement industry is caught onto that stuff as well. So it makes you kind of want to avoid certain things. Here's kind of what's ended up working in a perverse way, whether it's steroids, whether it's training ideas, whether it's supplements. And unfortunately, it's also a little bit annoying at the same time, is that really what you end up finding probably almost the most trustworthy is a buddy of mine used product X, and product X made him get bigger. Product X made him stronger. Product X used in this particular way put on 3 or 4 pounds of muscle tissue. And so that ends up almost being the trustworthy rate. Equally, your buddy, yourself, your Aunt Fanny would have used something where you've wasted 10, 20, 30, even $100 and nothing happened. And so it becomes kind of annoying to the point almost where you don't trust any kind of supplement. You've even had supplement products in the past where they've started out really, really effective for reasons I'll get into, because they were spiked, as Steve said, with dodgy stuff, including, ironically, steroids. And then as soon as everybody started raving about how amazing this product was, the steroid ingredient was removed. The standard product as was continued, and they made shitloads of money on the actual legitimate product that didn't contain this secret additional steroid ingredient. And I'm thinking specifically in this example, Steve, of Hot Stuff by reputation back in the day. And I'm thinking of Bill Phillips Muscle Media. So we're talking about some scams now. And to be fair, also other particular issues which associate. Right? So scams, the Hot Stuff one I've just mentioned. I believe, Steve, the first batch was some 10,000 tubs. These went out all over America to various customers, advertised quite big, and Muscle Media made the suggestion that they had been spiked with a steroid, probably some sort of powdered form of Dynabol, or even just Dynabol powder, imported from China or wherever. People going crazy. Hot Stuff was supposed to be a combination product, Steve, as you know, vitamin, mold stimulant, and a small amount of protein. Basically, it was supposed to be some kind of all-in-one type product. You had another one, Steve, where the issues were with estrogen. And unfortunately, the estrogen powder had a high molecular weight. So you'd have, I think, Ultimate Orange, this is the classic one, worked, did exactly what it said it was going to do. The problem was, because of the high molecular weight, if the product was allowed to settle, the estrogen went to the bottom. And so you'd have the top few scoops and think, oh, it's all right, it's a little bit stimulant. And by the time you got to the bottom, you had the really, really kick-ass dose. And so they had medical issues where it wasn't, if it had been capsulated, been put into pills, you'd have had a small effective dose spread throughout the whole canister, the whole bottle. But the way that the product was blended and mixed, etc., if it was allowed to settle, all the estrogen went to the bottom. And that caused a lot of problems for people that don't handle stims very well, and so on. Spiking. I've mentioned the one in China. A good example here in the UK and to a lesser degree in America is what we call proprietary blends. Even when they tell you what's in the proprietary blend, the law in America, I believe, certainly was the case that you did not have to list the highest amount first, whereas in the UK, you have to by law. So one of the ways the Americans got around that, Steve, was by putting in brackets. So let me talk about, for example, a protein blend. In the United Kingdom, if the number one first ingredient listed outside of brackets was whey protein concentrate, then that should be, by volume, the biggest ingredient in that protein blend. But if you put it in brackets, it could be in any order, which means the cheapest was probably the number one by volume ingredient included. In America, it didn't matter. I think the laws changed, I'm not sure. But that was one of those silly little things that if you didn't understand the difference between outside of brackets and in brackets and how the law would made you list your ingredients, you might think you're getting a high quality whey protein concentrate as a dominant ingredient product, but in fact, the much lower quality, less effective for you as a bodybuilder, soy might have been the number one ingredient. Or some sort of milk protein, skim milk butter, literally the stuff that you can buy in the supermarket and make up some milk with. So for it, that's the sort of stuff. Then you get into things like whether it's fat burners or testosterone boosters, like Steve said, or other products, specifically pre-workout products. And something that Steve's touched upon in our show notes is to make sure that we look out for certain particular ingredients and whatever else that we need to make a note of. So let me give an example again. Let's use a fat burner one. There are ingredients that you can add to fat burners and pre-workouts that literally make you feel them working. And how they work, whether it's beta-alanine, which is actually an effective ingredient for boosting your workout, but it also gives you paresthesia, which is a mild tingling sensation by dilation of the small blood vessels beneath your skin, which makes you kind of itchy for a few minutes. But it makes you feel like a product's working. Now, beta-alanine has its place. Niacin does the same. So I could make a pre-workout with decent dose of caffeine, decent dose of things that boost caffeine's effectiveness and so on and so forth. But in order to literally say in an advert, and you can feel my product working, I could include a small amount of niacin. And niacin in and of itself is probably not that much of an ingredient to boost your workout. It's probably more psychological than physical. But you would feel it working because it was dilate those small blood vessels again underneath your skin. You go, I took this product X, said I was going to have the best workout ever. And within 10 minutes of me taking it, Steve, I could feel it working. No, you couldn't. You could just feel the niacin kicking in. So you get this kind of stuff. You get, I'll give you another example, and I actually mentioned this on a show ages ago. So, colostrum, which is the protein fractions of milk that is in the first few days produced by cattle when the calf's just been born. It can be isolated and has been. It is incredibly effective if you're a baby cow. It is a high quality protein product, but it's expensive. It's expensive compared to whey protein, whey isolate, beef protein, egg protein, and so on and so forth. Some years ago, when whey protein at that time, say whey protein concentrate was selling for about £8 a kilo, so 2.2 pounds, and whey protein isolate was £10 a kilo. So we'll say £10, £10 UK, about $11, $12 for £2. Colostrum was £100, about $110, $115. And yet there was a company that I pointed out quite loudly without any issues, I didn't get no comeback on this, claimed that they had a dose of 90 grams per large scoop of bovine colostrum in their product. And I pointed out that the trade cost was more just for that 90 grams than the cost per scoop, per serving suggestion of the product they were selling. In other words, the maths didn't add up. And if the maths didn't add up, there was no fucking way that they had 90 grams of a product that was costing £100 a kilo, $110, $115 per £2 for their 90 gram suggestion of this ingredient in the serving. Literally, it was, I think it was the ingredients cost, including the colostrum, Steve, £4.50, so $6, and they were selling it for £4 per scoop when you worked out the trade price. And that wasn't even allowing for the price of wholesale trade distributors, health food shops, online supplement sellers selling their products on their behalf. In other words, it was impossible. There would be no margin of profit. So they lied just on the maths, never mind the actual ingredients or whatever. It probably had fuck all colostrum in it. And it absolutely I don't care, even if they bought hundreds and hundreds of tons and got the volume price down, they could not get the price down to a point where the numbers added up. It just didn't make any sense. So they were lying. And another example, one more, is we have part of the GNC group here in the United Kingdom, Holland and Barrett, and GNC do the same, and some of the Walmart does the same, Steve, where it's almost relying on people's ignorance of what an effective dose is. So I've used this example on another show. One of the best ingredients you can have in a joint product is glucosamine sulfate. The studies on glucosamine sulfate support a certain amount per day as being the most effective for 95%, nearly 100% of the users. And I believe off the top of my head, Steve, it is circa 1,500 milligrams. I've seen products sold, advertised with 300 milligram pills, and it says 1 pill per day, and then the jar will literally say on the jar, on the little bottle, 1 month supply. So the study says you've got to use a load more than that. And yet the company that should know better, that's literally all they fucking do is sell supplements, is claiming that this 300 milligram dose is sufficient with 30 capsules for a month's supply. No, it's equivalent. I think off the top of my head, Steve, it's equivalent of 6 days supply. So That's just relying on ignorance. There might be some effect, but the studies supported this amount, and so on and so forth. And you can do this all day long. As another example, and I'm not sure if it was a scam or just an absolute waste of time. But you might remember a product, Steve, called creatine serum. I believe the bottles had red liquid inside. And when creatine hit the market, people went crazy for it, and the studies were great, and everybody knew the dosage, and everybody says it's pretty much effective, and everybody was getting results. Company produced a creatine serum, which was literally creatine in a bottle in a drink, and you'd have a flavored drink, let's say strawberry. So it comes in this red liquid, strawberry flavored, with a single 5 gram dose per bottle. The problem was creatine in solution degrades after about 30 minutes. So this company produces this product, ships it in unrefrigerated truck halfway across America, halfway across the United Kingdom. It then ends up in the store. And if the store's not refrigerating it, then how the fuck is a product that might be months old supposed to contain an effective dose of creatine when it probably degraded to the point where it's just inert in solution in an unrefrigerated drug in an unrefrigerated store on a hot summer's day, and all you're really getting when you get to that point is something that you could have probably paid 20 or 30 bucks for 100 or 200 grams of the powder, and you're paying $2 for a 5 gram scoop that has no effective way of working in your body whatsoever because it hasn't been stored properly and degraded in solution 30 minutes after it was put into the bottle. So again, you could do this all day long, Steve. You and I would have wasted probably at some point hundreds and hundreds of dollars, certainly hundreds of pounds, without knowing why we'd wasted that money. It's only our experience these many years later that shows us, oh God, I wish I hadn't bought that Megamass 4000. That was mostly sugar. I wish I hadn't drunk that creatine serum. I wasn't taking an effective dose. Even again, just being sometimes scared, not having the money to pay a good price for an effective product because my God, this other product's 1/3 of the price. Why the fuck do I want to pay $100 when I can get a similar product for $30? The reality is you cannot. So unless a company is being especially greedy, it costs more to do things properly. And the last thing, which applies to all of these things, and we talk about trading with this regard as well, we're quite often as a society time limited. You guys are probably doing your cardio or driving in your car or even working out while you're listening to this show. It's a way for you to get information in about supplements, about training, about PEDs in an effective time useful way. You've got kids, you've got college, you've got work. Americans do 55 hours a week, UK 40 hours a week, the Germans 35 hours a week. We've got more time, but we don't have that much more time when we've got other things going on. So you're trying to use your time usefully. And I'm trying to encourage, as I'll talk about in a minute, you need sometimes to set aside a few minutes just to look at the dosages, the formulations, how products are presented, and so on and so forth, so you can make good decisions. There are companies here in the UK and in America. Good Housekeeping, I think, is one. I'm trying to think of another one here we got in the UK where they take products, including supplements, try them, test them, taste them, and then they'll give you their top 5. You sometimes see this in one or two of the fitness magazines, but you have to be very, very careful because even the fitness magazines that have tested products like that are testing products, one of which will be from one advertiser, and the other 9 might be from random companies they don't like. And you have to watch out for bias. So it's really difficult sometimes to know what's effective. The number one way to probably do this, anything, Steve, like this, would be looking at the original study. And even if you only look at that last part of the way the study is presented to see the conclusion, it's worth your time. As an example, just the last example, Steve, how many different forms of creatine have been presented as the new monohydrate, meaning creatine monohydrate is probably the most effective form for the great and vast majority of people. But I've seen creatine salts, creatine sulfates, creatine whatever else. It's been bonded to this. You don't get the degradation in water, so on and so forth. But the reality is, even if they are effective, they're 2 or 3 times the price versus the cheaper version, which pretty much works for everybody. So it can be confusing. It can bite you on the ass, but it's definitely worth you spending just listening to this show to get a better handle or feel. Even if you have to come on the forum, Steve, and say, guys, I've got this. Is it any good? It's a new protein cookie. Is it any good? And stuff like that. What do you think on all this kind of stuff in the scam, Steve?
Yeah, and what ends up happening, you have these fat supplements, and that's the word that mobsters, getting at. It's these fat supplements, and they try to reinvent the wheel constantly, and there'll be a FOMO effect, fear of missing out, not just with the supplement companies, but also with the supplement owners themselves who are like, wow, I got to get this stuff. So the
Yeah,
manufacturer will be the one creating these fads. So the supplement owner is like, I need to get in on this before everyone else does. So they'll load up on it. And then what happens over time is they realize, yeah, that new creatine that's supposed to be, all so good. My customers aren't buying it anymore. They'll buy it, they'll realize it's bullshit, and they won't come back and buy it again.
yeah,
They won't get
yeah,
repeat customers. So then the fad will die out, and they'll come up with a new fad over and over again. And what happens is these supplement owners, remember, these are businessmen. They're in
yeah,
it to make money. They're not in it to put out good products. They're not in it for the long haul. They're just fly by night. So what they'll do, they don't care if you come back a second time. They just want to get you that one time. Maybe they'll get you a second time because they'll claim, oh, you got to run it. You got to run more than one bottle. So you got to come back a second time. And then what happens is they just basically steal all the money from the company, they milk it dry, and then they file
mm,
bankruptcy. And then they leave their investors out to dry. Okay. They're sucker investors, and they leave their customers out to dry because you're going to be like, oh, I want my money back. This product doesn't work. Well, sorry, the company's bankrupt. You're not getting your money back. So at the end of the day, and these businessmen, they'll do this over and over and over again. They'll even go to jail for scamming, and they'll come
yeah,
out of jail and literally set up a company the next day. They're like ready to go. So these guys, they're just basically career criminals, and that's what they do. And they have no morals or ethics. They were just raised without any morals and ethics where they could just sleep at night knowing they rip people off. That's literally, instead of putting their energy toward doing good things in this world.
yes,
They put their
yes,
energy into doing bad things. And unfortunately, the way I talked about it earlier, the way things are set up, it's set up for the bad guys in the end to win and to get away with. And very rarely do these guys end up really paying a price. Even if they end up going to jail, they might get like a 4 year sentence or something, and then they might end up serving like 3 months or 6 months and they're out again and they walk away with millions of dollars. So really it's worth it. It's like getting a stock insider tip on a stock, and you
mm,
make millions of dollars on that tip, and then you get busted for it and you have to go to jail for a year. Well, you're still walking away with millions of dollars. Maybe you have to pay a fine and serve some jail time. Well, in the end you still walked away with money, so it's worth it. So these guys, they're okay with doing these types of scams. And a lot of times they know, they have the lawyers, they have the knowledge where they know to use the loopholes. So where they can actually get away with all the stuff we've talked about, the lying. There's also, when it comes to zero, when you see on a supplement zero sugar, well, a lot of times it's not true that it's zero sugar. You might see 0 calories. A lot of times it's not 0 calories. A lot of times it's got a shit ton of sugar and a shit ton of calories. But because of the loopholes in the laws, they can put down zero and get away with it. It might have 5 calories and they can put down zero and get away with it. They're not going to get checked anyway. So what do they give a shit? So really, they know what they're doing when it comes to these supplements. And a lot of times when you take these supplements and you feel a certain way on them and you're like, something feels off in my body, then yeah, this supplement isn't good for me and I shouldn't be taking this supplement. That should be a red flag, that something is wrong with the supplement. There's an ingredient that doesn't belong in my body. Maybe I'm getting heartburn from the supplement. Maybe I'm getting stomach ache. Maybe I'm getting diarrhea. Something's going on here
yeah.
with the
Is what's
supplement.
the one with Steve where certain products have I've forgotten the name of the ingredient, but they have it'll say zero net carbs on the label. And the reality is they're using an ingredient, the name of which escapes me, which sounds So it feels like when you're eating the product, and I'm thinking of some of these high protein cookie type products, the necessity for that product to be moist or moist in sensation, in mouthfeel, when it's been on the shelf in the store, so it needs to be like a soft baked cookie, like you'd make for yourself in the house. It's been in the bag, in the box, on the shelf of the store at least a couple of weeks. But let's be a bit naughty and say it's been there a month. And then it took a certain amount of time to come from the factory, perhaps imported from overseas, but even if it was made in the country, 1 or 2 weeks to get to the store. It's been on the shelf for a couple of weeks. You're looking at the use by date. You open the bag, the little thing that the cookie's inside. Oh my God, it's soft and moist. Well, of course it is. They've put something in there like glycerol or something else to keep it moist in sensation. It doesn't dry out and get hard and crusty like they used to be. Oh, this tastes lovely. And then Steve says there's some sort of overly sweet aftertaste. And yet, when you're looking at it, it says low sugars, low fat, zero net carbs. But in reality, it contains something that the body doesn't digest very well, but is really kind of a carbohydrate source that's enabling it to taste moist, to enable it to feel moist when you take it out of the bag, but in fact is kind of undigestible, Steve. So, like Steve says, you have one of these large protein cookies, and then you're getting gas because your body doesn't handle this particular ingredient incredibly well. Now, if they didn't put it in, the fucking thing would be like a rock. You'd have to dunk it in a hot tea or coffee, Steve, just to soften the bastard up. And you're kind of like, I mean, it's the same one with any of those protein bars that look like a very well known sort of brand of confectionery. In fact, some of the confectionery brands have invested into this. And it's the same thing again. You've taken out the goodness, and I say goodness, Steve, the sugar, and you replaced it with protein. And the problem with protein bars used to be, for the same reason, they were powdery because the protein itself didn't mix very well. The science was rubbish, so they wasn't really good at, for example, the way that they prepared the protein to be mixed in. And so a lot of the early protein bars were brittle. They were horrendously tough to chew. It took ages in your mouth to soften a product up, etc., etc. So any time a product like that needs to be like the sweet, like the dessert, like the confectionery that you was eating before, and yet contains 15, 20 grams of protein, they've had to treat the protein or they've had to treat the original product in some way that allows the protein not to be horrible and crispy and hard to chew on and so on and so forth. And 9 times out of 10, that's some sort of chemical treatment or additional chemical that's been added just to allow them to sell you this high protein bar. How many times have you and I said on the forum, Steve, make your own? Make your own high protein flapjacks. Wrap them up in cling film, wrap them up in foil, keep them in the freezer. They will be 10 times better than the stuff you buy in the supermarket. We know a lot of our listeners, and especially the guys on the forum, they love the protein bars. And if it's a choice between that and a bar of confectionery, fine, the protein bar better. But in order for it to be moist and taste nice in your mouth and feel like you're eating that bar of confectionery with the addition of protein, it's had to be treated in a particular way. Like Steve says, some of these ingredients, people get allergic reactions. Your stomach doesn't like it. It's indigestible. It's probably coming out in your poo, in your shit, excreted. I'll give you an example just from my own personal. I attended a bodybuilding competition where some of the biggest names in the industry had been invited to the UK and competed on stage. Someone gave me at the event, I had food, I had a breakfast with the guys in the morning, but the rest of the day I was taking photographs, and someone gave me a whole box of these little mini dark chocolate and orange high protein flapjacks. And they were only small, so they have, I think, 50, 60 grams. And they ate the whole goddamn box for the rest of the day because I had nothing else to eat. I was moving around taking photographs and so on and so forth. Really, I should have only eaten a couple because that's the way you was meant to have them. And they all contained one single flavour, this glycerol, whatever the fuck it was, Steve. To say that I spent most of the rest of the evening and the next day passing wind would be the understatement of the century. I consumed probably the equivalent of a month's supply of these things in several hours, and my stomach did not like it. And again, that's just so they could taste nice, taste moist, and so on and so forth. Probably the best part about them was the oatmeal, The chocolate was horrendous. The orange flavoring was too sweet, and the additional ingredient just really fucked me up for a couple of days. And again, it was my own fault for just eating the whole goddamn box. So, guys, honestly, look, one of the things that Steve mentioned, and I kind of touch on this just to finish on this particular part, is a Me Too kind of thing. So, and I've used this example before. I have thousands of bodybuilding magazines, thousands. And the two that really grew to huge proportions, Steve, one was Muscular Development, and one was the American issue of Flex magazine, the US, not UK issue. Both of them got between 300 and 400 pages. I think Muscular Development at one point was 425 pages. When at that point, at the biggest, thickest, heaviest bodybuilder magazine ever, the first 40 pages were adverts. And the vast majority of those adverts were for either pre-workout or fat burning type products. These are the ones, both those two products, that make the industry the most amount of money. They promise a great workout or they promise to help you lose fat, not weight, fat, because that's what you want. So they call fat burners for a reason. And I said, how many times of these 30 or 40 adverts, pages after page after page, before you even get to the contents and the articles, would promise you they were the strongest product in the industry. They would have really the daily dose of caffeine in various forms in one serving. So, for example, recommended daily dose of caffeine is around 400 milligrams. Some of these products would have 400 milligrams in your pre-workout drink, your pre-workout pill, your pre-workout powder, which most people train between 5 o'clock and 8 o'clock in the evening. You're taking your daily dose in one fucking hit. Several of these companies, if not all of them, were claiming that they had the highest or the strongest pre-workout ever made. Well, that can't be possible. Only one could be the strongest. The rest will be less so. And a lot of those, again, as we touched upon earlier in the show, would include ingredients to boost the effectiveness of caffeine, to boost the effectiveness of other ingredients in there. And like Steve said, you literally got to the point where if you didn't include this latest Me Too type ingredient, you lost out on sales. And ultimately, as Steve said again, you're in there to pay your mortgage. You're in there to pay your staff. You are not a charity. It is not. I'm not doing this to help bodybuilders. I'm doing this to help bodybuilders and make money. And that's if
I
I'm a
think
good guy.
I think a lot of these guys start off very naive, when they start a supplement, because everybody wants to start a supplement company. My old co-host Trevor, Coach Trevor, he
I've
even
owned one, Steve. I've
yeah,
owned one. So
so
yeah, absolutely. Go on.
everybody wants to do their own supplement because it seems like it's so easy, but it's such a saturated market. So you might start out wanting to do it the honest way, but then over time you realize, well, my competition, it's like a car dealer. A car dealer might start out, oh, I want to be an honest car dealer and be honest with my customers, but then you see all your competition using every trick in the book, every loophole in the book, cheating and lying to their customers.
Mm-hmm.
You start doing these warranty scams on your customers. You start when they bring their car in for service, then you might add like $200 for something that you didn't even do. You start doing those little things, or you could be an air conditioning guy, same thing. Maybe you start off as an honest air conditioning guy, and then over time you realize, you know what, I can charge them an extra $50 for Freon. They're not going to know the difference. I can charge them an extra $25 for a part. They're not going to know the difference. And what happens over time, and I've seen this with people that I've used, to fix my air conditioner, or plumbers, or people over the years that I've known, is they start, or lawn landscaping people or lawn care people, they start doing little scams. Like I had a lawn guy, I had him for years, and he started doing the whole, I gotta clean out your sprinklers. It's gonna cost $50. I gotta clean them out. The dirt gets in. I gotta clean them out. I didn't even
Yeah,
see him do it. And he's like, "Oh, Steve, you gotta pay me an extra $50." I'm like, "For what?" He's like, "I had
yeah.
cleaned out your sprinklers." I'm like, "I didn't even see you clean out the sprinklers, so I'm just gonna take your word for it." So you start doing that a little bit over time, and then it becomes a habitual thing where you
Mm.
start, getting away with it, and then you know what I'm saying? And then that's what happens in the supplement industry, I feel like. So guys end up doing it. So these guys that I used to respect in the supplement industry, who used to be honest guys, they've turned evil. They've turned into scammers, and it's a real shame. And they're, it's not even. I can literally prove to you how they've lied and cheated their customers. Like one guy, for example, he claims, "Oh, I don't put high fructose corn syrup in my protein powders."
Mm.
Literally, you can go to his fucking website and pull up one of the supplements he's selling, and literally it says on the supplement high fructose corn syrup. I'm like, dude, like
Ah, come
he's
on.
straight up lying
Yeah.
and about it, and your supplement literally says it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you're not even trying to hide that you're a lying scumbag at this point. So it's just a shame, but that's what happens because they feel like you said, mobster, it's a cyclical industry, and you might be flying high, and then one year you might be flying low, and then you got to kind of cut corners just to stay in business. So they'll start doing that. So unfortunately, also, and this is something too that I've talked to supplement owners over the years, they've been forthcoming about it. They said, look, the supplement industry, it's a magnet for grifters because any industry that is so lax on regulation, that's going to be an attraction for grifters. And if you look up these supplement owners, a lot of them have criminal histories. Like you can be a felon, a fraudster, a cheat, a scammer, and open up your own supplement company. It's not like there's some type of rule to prevent it. Now, here's one of the things, though, that has been happening in America that has kind of helped clamp the industry down a little bit is that
Yeah.
credit card processors really do background checks on supplement owners now. So, but here's the thing, it's easy to get away with that. They can use their wife as the supplement owner, they can kind of get away from that. But when you try to open up your own supplement country and you try to get a credit card processor, they are going to do what they can to get under the hood of the car and make sure that you're not a scammer because they don't want to deal with bullshit in the future. They don't want to deal with chargebacks in the future. So that's one of the ways they've been able to do that. But now, with all these other ways to pay for things, you can use PayPal, you can use Venmo, you can use crypto. There's all kinds of other ways around it. That ruins that idea. So if you ever see a supplement company like not taking credit cards, that would tell you that for whatever reason they have a
No, no idea
history.
what have they done. Yeah.
They well,
Steve, you
well,
know
it's not
what?
about what they've done. It's about they probably have a history of
Yeah.
customers doing chargebacks. So what happens is it's just like
Yes.
if you get insurance on your house and you continuously file claims for your roof and file claims for this, eventually the insurance company is going to say fuck off. We don't even want to deal with
Yeah, you're
you.
too high of a risk. What's going
Yeah,
on?
or
Like,
if you keep
yeah,
getting into car accidents or you keep getting tickets, and the car insurance company is not is you're gonna have to use like a really expensive car insurance company because nobody wants to deal with you anymore. So it's the same thing. So that could be a way for you to check on a supplement company,
yeah,
see if
yeah,
they even take credit cards. Because if they don't, that could be a red flag that hey, the supplement owner or the person in charge of the supplement company has a criminal history or the supplement company has a really shady history. Go ahead, Monster.
yeah. So the last one, and I'll move on to about doing your own research. So the last reason, Steve, is because let's be honest, we're all looking to a greater or lesser degree for a shortcut. If I say to Steve, I've come up with this great idea, which is going to cut out all the different corners that you and I would have had to overcome in order to make $1 million, and it works, Steve would buy it, you'd buy it, I'd buy it. We would, because we don't want to wait. We want $1 million. We want to be rich. If I say to you, Steve, it's going to take you 2 to 3 years to gain as a newbie 10, 15, £20 of muscle, and I come along as a supplement company and I say to you, you don't want to wait 2 or 3 years. Do it in a year. Use my product. My product will get you there much quicker. And of course, this is part of the attraction of steroids because it's quicker than doing it the hard way. However, as we know, the same rules still apply. You still have to train your ass off. You still have to eat properly. You still have to get to bed early and make sure you've got enough sleep and recover and so on and so forth. And you still need to do all those things in between when you're not on steroids. And the same thing applies to supplements. So the idea is sometimes we are kind of guilty as consumers of supplements because we want things quicker We don't want to wait. We don't want to do the work. Now, unfortunately, moving on to doing your own research, I'm going to encourage the listener to some degree. Now, I mean, you could literally go to, and I'm thinking of NCIM and various similar organizations and universities that have open access online, Steve, and you can find the original study for yourself. We've talked about SARMs and peptides and various steroids and supplements on different shows that we do, Steve. And sometimes when we refer to the research, we've actually literally read stuff out on air. Okay. It can be, it can feel a little bit complicated, but the number one thing is read the intro, read the conclusion, especially want peer reviewed research. So, products developed, who used that product? Was it youngsters or old people? Was it someone that was your age, the listener's age, your build, tall, short, fat, thin? If all the people in the study were almost identical to you and they got great results, and the conclusion said that the average person your age, your height, your weight, etc., added 5 pounds of muscle, and it's not just the only study that says that, but multiple studies say that, I would say that's a fucking product you should be using. Absolutely. The same thing applies to ingredients. Now, one of the problems we got a little bit is sometimes companies will quote one study. They will misread deliberately a conclusion. They deliberately might aim the product at an older audience, but it was only young people in the study, and so on. So we encourage you to come to the forums. We have resources on the forums, podcasts like this one, articles that Steve has written, I've written, other people have written. You've got the practical application of listeners like yourself, members of the forum. And then we will also sometimes direct you to, even that way, we would direct you to the study. This is what the study said. This is the conclusion that the study came to. Another study agreed with it. Another study agreed with it. And this is the reason why you should use that. And even silly little things like just because the study used 300 milligrams doesn't mean you'll get double the results if you took 600 milligrams and stuff like this. The number one reason I encourage you to do your own research, and especially if you can, which is looking at those studies, is it will persuade you to look at the effective amount that was used in the study versus what's dosed in a product. It will understand the way that these products were used in the study, for how long, how much you should take, and so on and so forth. So that's number one. Number two, with Steve, using good company products. Why do we need to build muscle? Why? Purely and simply because I can think of one or two products I'd love for them to bring back. And one or two products, the main two, Steve, of course, is their organ protector product and their test booster product. Now, we've done multiple shows on both these products, and we talk about the ingredients, we talk about the dosages. We say, for example, if you look at the study originally that said this product, say, for example, Steve Tudker, this is the amount that was used in the study. Now you go back and look at the product that we're talking about. In this case, for example, with Tudker, HC Generate. Does it contain the amount of Tudker that was used in the study? Yes. We talk about Tribulus. Does it use the formula, the correct product, the right part of the plant? Is it standardized? Is non-standardized is not going to be as effective as standardized. What was shown in the study? How much? Was it a 29% standardized, 30% standardized, 15% standardized? 15% might do something, but if the study said 29%, then we want at least that amount of dosage standardized to 29% as being useful. I mean, one of the things we talk about with Need to Build Muscle, Steve, and I'll bring you in for this, is literally how the company came to be created and what the aim of the original two owners to begin with was when they put together their company, and how, for example, and I'll finish on this point before I bring Steve in, they're still not trying to be millionaires from the products they produce. So talk about the original concept of them when they started the company, Steve.
Yeah, and the original concept was to provide good quality supplements for serious weightlifters and steroid users. And you notice if you go to their website, they don't even sell protein powder. And you know what? The reason is because serious bodybuilders and serious steroid users don't use protein powder as much as the marketing as much as other companies want you to think.
Yeah.
They could easily sell a protein powder. Just get a bunch of sugar together, get some chocolate flavor, boom, and add some cheap whey
Yeah.
concentrate, and they could
Yeah.
sell it. But they don't see the need to do that. They see the need to sell good quality, natural herbals and natural ingredients in their products. Like their N2 Guard, for example, has 44 different ingredients, all kinds of ingredients from good fats in their ingredients, to vitamins, minerals in their ingredients, to Tutka, as Mobster mentioned, liver supplements, kidney
Yep.
supplements, things for the heart.
Heart, brain, blood.
And then they have a great product called AC Generate, which is the best testosterone booster you could possibly use.
Yep.
And with both these products, you can get blood work done before and after and see the
Yeah.
actual changes. And look, at the end of the day, Need to Build Muscle doesn't use their concept from the start has not been to push their products with BS marketing. You're not going to see the owner in the jacuzzi with 10 different women. You're not going to see the
No.
owner driving a Lamborghini. You're
No.
not going to see that grift where they try to rope in the
Gold
18
watches. Yep.
the 18 to 25-year-old naive young male who doesn't know any better. That's not their demographic. Their demographic is serious
Yes.
bodybuilders. Those of you who are serious about this shit and who want a product that actually works, they don't need to use BS marketing. They use their money to improve their products. The N2 Guard that they started almost 20 years ago, the product today is almost the same, but they have taken things out and they have added things to improve it. Like Tutka, the original N2 Guard didn't have Tutka, now it
Yep.
does. So they'll add things over time. AC Generate, same thing. They've added one or two ingredients to their AC Generate, and they took out one or two ingredients that were obsolete. So they've constantly been improving their products. And Need to Build Muscle, they focus on repeat customers. Their customers, month in and month out, will buy these products because they work. They're not a fly-by-night supplement company, like I said earlier in the podcast, that's only looking to for you to buy one supplement and then that's it, because the supplement doesn't work for you and you'll never come back again, and then they'll move on to the next 17 or 18-year-old that they can scam. No, that's not
Yep.
what N2BM does. They want repeat customers. So they provide excellent customer service, fast shipping, and the products actually work. And I've been using their products for years. I've been using their products since they started almost 20 years ago. And Mobster's been using their products for at least 10 years. So we use their products. We trust their products. It's an absolute must. My favorite product that they have is the N2 Guard. You will notice
Mm.
the difference. Like if I run out of a bottle of N2 Guard and I'm on cycle, I will feel it a week later. I will feel the changes.
Yeah.
My blood
Yeah.
pressure will go up. My sleep will get worse. I'll feel the negative consequences. And then I'll order another bottle and then I'll feel better after a few days on it. So it definitely
Even
makes a
Steve,
difference.
even if you allowed for the psychological aspect of using a product and feeling good versus not feeling good, and we've seen, as Steve said, blood test. It's not even, what's the phrase, Steve, which escapes me again, when you take something and you feel it working, and really it's just you persuading yourself, the placebo effect. No, N2 Guard, we have seen blood tests, infallible argument to produce these numbers of what the person was getting before he used N2 Guard. Look at these numbers, they were high. He wasn't feeling good. He didn't like how this was come across. He's taken N2 Guard, those numbers have dropped. Steve and I did a show just as we finished this show where we compared N2 Guard, just as the one product, to I think the two biggest effective products here in the UK. One additional product which was named after the original organ protector that everybody used back in the day, which was the worst organ protection product I've ever seen in my life. You could buy 10 bottles and you still not get to the dosages of all the ingredients that's in one bottle of N2 Guard. I'm thinking of Live 52, as you know, Steve. The two UK ones were well formulated, but I think one had like 6 or 7 ingredients, the other one had 10, and N2 Guard has 44. And again, the others were produced to a price. They would be cheaper than N2 Guard, but they were cheaper for a fucking reason. They needed more ingredients. They needed higher dosages. They were good, but they weren't on N2 Guard's level. And again, this is another reason, going back to what I said earlier on about doing your research. Some ingredients, especially when you're going, why is there 44 ingredients, Steve? Why is 44 ingredients, Mobster? Because some ingredients work in synergy. You get the right dosages, you get the right amounts, and then certain ingredients work well when they're put together. I've even talked about how sometimes they've run out of product to sell. And they've done this because certain ingredients are only available at certain times of the year. Some of these ingredients have been brought up ahead of time via the futures market. And so all of the ingredient for the next 3 months has been brought up. And you have to wait another 3 months before you can get this ingredient back into stock again. Then it's like I said with the standardized stuff. You want to make sure the quality of the ingredient is as good as it was before. We got some cheap. No, I don't want the cheap stuff. I want the expensive stuff because the expensive stuff's what works. So they've had to wait a few weeks, a month or two, sometimes for these products to be restocked because someone else is ahead of the queue in the formulation company that puts the product together for them. The availability of the ingredient wasn't there, and so on and so forth. So you need to understand these things. Certain products work incredibly well and they will sell out. Other products will sell out purely simply because the marketing was amazing, or they've got metering type ingredients or whatever else. To understand how this works, as Steve said, about 10 years, 5 years, 10 years, etc., etc. Products like N2 Guard and HC Generate have been around a long time because they've worked for a long time. Even with the reformulation or something's been taken away and something's been added to it, why are they still available as they are? Why haven't they been renamed or reformulated? Why hasn't the company been sold, etc., etc., etc.? All of this because you're consistently bringing out a product that works. This is how it works in the real world, how it works outside of bodybuilding. You consistently bring out a product that works every single damn day. I mean, look, it's not healthy for you, but the formulation for cola has only pretty much been fucked around with a couple of times. And every time they fucked around with it, all the consumers screamed blue murder and they've had to bring out the original product back because that's what consumers wanted. That's what consumers were buying. When it comes to products that we want to use in bodybuilding, in weight training to support our PED use, etc., we need products that work, that are effective, that are properly dosed. And you need to understand from these shows, come onto the forums, how this stuff works so that we can explain it to you, direct you towards studies, make sure you know what you're doing, etc., etc. Please note, we are not doctors and the opinions are ours. It is our view, based on our experience and views on the topic. Our podcasts are for informational purposes and entertainment only. The freedom of speech and the First Amendment applies.